how much do you think genetics matter? How much do you think genetics matter? How much do you think genetics matter for building a good physique?
This seems to be a topic that people either downplay or just straight up avoid.
I'm going to be rating your genetics.
How do you know if you have good bodybuilding genetics?
Genetics holds about 50% of your future results.
Just how much of a part does genetics play?
We wanted to get to the bottom of this, and you won't actually believe the true answer.
All right, I'm here with Siv. All right, Siv, how much do you think genetics matter?
Oh, probably like 80-20.
So do you think you can become like a bodybuilder with shit genetics?
I don't reckon. I mean, unless you're blasting a shit ton of gear, but you know what I mean? I don't.
But you can still build like a good physique nonetheless.
Absolutely, yeah. That's just hard work. Like that 20% will take you there, but then competing on stage, you know what I mean? I don't think you could do that with like good genetics.
So how much do you think genetics matter? We're not even talking bodybuilding here. Do you think anyone can build a truly aesthetic physique that stands out and gets attraction from women and respect from men?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think if you want to be someone like who enters a modeling gig or does something in terms of like powerlifting or like whatever that may be, it's obviously going to restrict you. But I think in terms of just actually making a name for yourself, you guys like Joe Fazer, for example, not the best genetics ever, but you can still sort of create an aesthetic physique and also enter other places on YouTube and content creation where you otherwise could not. You can still relate to the audience even if you're not genetically blessed.
Okay, Mr. Sight, how much do you think genetics matter for building a good physique?
I'd say genetics are probably one of the most important things for building a good physique because it coming down to your muscle insertion is going to determine how aesthetic the muscle looks. But I don't want to say genetics are the limiting factor. Hard work is obviously going to be the number one thing, but determining how you're going to look, genetics play a huge part in that. Well, if you have narrow shoulders, you can't make your clavicle all of a sudden super wide. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that's going to limit you. If you have big, narrow shoulders, you might be able to get bigger arms than someone with wider shoulders. There's ways you can play off of it.
Yeah, for sure. So you think some people will use that kind of as an excuse or a cope?
Of course.
Yeah, but you can still build like a good physique.
Anyone can build a good physique.
Yeah.
I mean, you might not be able to be Mr. Olympia, but hey, if you want a good aesthetic physique, anyone can do it.
100%, man. I agree.
So after conducting these interviews, we got a general consensus. But now it's time to come to an actual conclusion. But first, let's define what makes good or bad genetics, because it can mean a lot of different things. Like you have things like myostatin genes, androgen receptor sensitivity, how big the muscle bellies are, and then even muscle insertions, which is honestly most of it. And you can have a whole mix of combinations of these traits, and it's what makes up your muscle building genetics. We actually made a free calculator, and it will automatically assess your genetics from muscle insertions, hereditary traits, muscle size potential, and literally everything about your genetics. It'll take you like a minute or minute and a half to do, and it'll just show you there for free.
Yeah, me and Will both took the tests, and both of our genetics are just shit. Growing up, me and Will were both extremely underdeveloped. And a lot of you guys can probably relate to this. It felt like no matter how much we ate, we just couldn't put on size.
Yeah, we were watching guys like Dylan McKnight and David Lade, like that was our motivation. And it seemed like am I ever going to achieve this?
Yeah, it's like what are we missing?
Yeah, I mean, it took us years before we sort of worked out that both genetics and anabolic steroids come into the play when you're looking up to influencers and trying to recreate their physiques, and everyone responds different to different things, and a lot of influencers miss the mark on that. They'll say like, this is how I got the most results, this specific style of training or this specific diet.
And despite what majority of the internet thinks, my physique is natural.
I lied to you.
The thing is, like, a lot of these influencers know they have grade A genetics. They know they are blessed, but the thing is they just don't want to discredit themselves for the work they've put in, so they'll just say, oh, they worked extremely hard for it. We did that overtime, which if any of you know about fitness, it doesn't really work like that.
If there was a black pill for the fitness industry, we have swallowed it. And it is true that every single influencer that you watch and look up to is like guaranteed to have top 1% genetics. I don't think there's really one influencer apart from like a Joe Fazer, for instance, which his brand is based around having poor genetics and being a skinny kid. Aside from that caveat, they're all just insanely genetically blessed.
And that's not to say that you shouldn't push yourself to your absolute limits in the gym. Obviously, we push that message in every video, but like we could honestly just be talking out of our ass. So let's just break it down. Let's look at what the science has to say about how hard you train versus genetics. So the studies show that genetics account for about 50 to 80% of strength and power differences between individuals. Even the normal testosterone range can go from 300 to 1,000. Myostatin gene mutations can lead to 200 to 300% more muscle mass than average. And even androgen receptor sensitivity can vary from 5 to 10 times between individuals.
So those are just numbers, but how do we actually understand what that means? Well, when you put it together and put it through a calculator, it estimates that genetics make up for about 60 to 70% of your gym results. That's a big factor, but that also means that 20 to 30% is still within your control, which is honestly massive.
And another thing to think about is that it might just take you a little bit longer to hit your natural potential than other people. Your gym trajectory might look completely different. So to sum this all up, genetics play a big role, even a massive one. And everyone that I interviewed kind of hit the nail on the head, especially Jeff. Yeah, you can build a great physique. There's no one on the planet that can't build a great physique. And even me personally, I thought I could never build a good physique. I just thought it wasn't in the cards for me. And I proved myself wrong.
And I think a lot of the fitness industry downplaying genetics is actually kind of dangerous for people. And I think that's because people think that no matter what, they could achieve and influence a physique. But for some people, it's just not possible. And that's why I'm so real about genetics, because I honestly think it allows you to compare yourself to yourself more, and it's actually a lot healthier for your mental health in the long run, and it eliminates a lot of body dysmorphia. Yeah, and I think a lot of the steroid and drug abuse is honestly due to people trying to chase unachievable physiques. That's why I'm gonna keep it real. And you probably don't like hearing this. Like, you probably don't like hearing that genetics could be limiting you, but that's just the facts, and I'm always going to state the facts, even if it makes people upset in the comments. Also, before we finish here, we've completely revamped the Spartan protocol. For the guys that are in it, take a look through it again. It's completely changed, and if you're not in it, what the fuck are you doing? These 4 weeks could probably change your whole life. Anyway, guys, we'll see you in the next video. Peace.